Greywing nestled close to my side, its warm presence a quiet comfort in the cold silence. In that moment, I didn't realize how much that simple closeness meant, that even in the darkest hours, the bond between us would be a steady light. I could never have guessed that this small act of trust from a wild goose would mark the start of something extraordinary. The days following were slow but steady. I was weak, recovering from an injury that had left me vulnerable, but Greywing stayed by me like a silent guardian. Each morning, I would wake to find it perched nearby, sometimes on the windowsill, other times resting just inches away, always watching with an intensity that felt almost human. There was a strange comfort in its unwavering attention, a connection that went beyond words. Greywing was no longer just a wild animal to me, it was a protector, a friend, a lifeline in a world that suddenly seemed so lonely. As the cold grip of winter stretched on, our bond grew stronger. I noticed small things, the way it would bring me little gifts, bright feathers and twigs, even a handful of berries on one rare day. I didn't know if these were tokens of gratitude or signs of friendship, but they meant everything to me. In a vast, empty world where I felt isolated, Greywing's presence was a reminder that I wasn't alone. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change both our lives forever. The morning after a heavy snowfall, Greywing was restless, perched by the door, nervously honking and flapping its wings. Something felt off. When I stepped outside, I saw a large, unfamiliar footprint press deep into the fresh snow. It was unlike anything I'd seen before. Something big, something wild had passed through. Curiosity and caution mixed as I followed the trail, Greywing close at my side. The footprints led deep into the forest, where the trees grew thick and close, their branches tangled like a maze. The air grew colder, and a strange unease settled over me. The forest felt alive, watching, waiting. Suddenly, a low growl broke the silence. From behind a dense thicket, a pack of wolves emerged, their eyes gleaming with hunger and cold intelligence. Greywing stopped dead in its tracks, feathers bristling with alarm. My heart pounded. The wolves circled us, slow and deliberate, testing our defenses. I backed away carefully, trying to stay calm, but the danger was real. Then Greywing made a surprising move, honking loudly, wings flapping fiercely to distract the predators. For a moment, the wolves hesitated, confused by the goose's defiance. That moment was all I needed to stand my ground. I grabbed a sturdy stick and brandished it, meeting their snarling gaze. The standoff was tense, every second stretched thin with the threat of violence. But Greywing wasn't just my companion anymore, it was my protector. Together we faced the wild, an unlikely pair bound by trust and courage. With a sudden burst of energy, Greywing charged the largest wolf, wings beating furiously against the cold air. The wolf yelped, stumbling back in surprise. Time seemed to slow as Greywing swooped and darted, striking again and again, driving the pack backward. I couldn't believe my eyes. This wild goose was more than a companion, it was a fierce guardian. The wolves, confused and shaken by the unexpected attack, retreated slowly into the shadows of the forest. Breathing heavily, I knelt beside Greywing, whose feathers were ruffled but unbroken. Pride shone in its sharp eyes, and I realized then that our bond had transformed us both. Greywing wasn't just a wild bird anymore, it was family. Days passed, and winter's grip tightened. Greywing stayed close, often perched silently nearby, its keen gaze never leaving me. It brought small gifts, bright feathers, twigs, berries, tokens of connection in a world that felt increasingly cold and lonely. But as the snow deepened, so did a creeping unease within me. A fatigue unlike any before settled into my bones. Greywing seemed to sense it too, never straying far, watching with an almost human concern. One cold morning, after a heavy snowfall, Greywing honked urgently by the door. Outside, the strange footprints had appeared again, bigger, fresher, leading back into the dark forest. Together, we prepared to face whatever was coming next. I stepped outside, Greywing close at my side, the cold biting into my skin as we followed the strange, large footprints that had appeared overnight. The snow muffled our footsteps, but my heart pounded loudly with every step deeper into the forest. The trees grew denser, their twisted branches scraping against the gray sky, and the air grew colder, an icy chill that seemed to seep beneath my skin. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from the shadows. Greywing stopped, feathers bristling, eyes sharp and alert. From between the thick bushes emerged a pack of wolves, their eyes glowing fiercely, hungry and wild. They circled us, snarling softly, testing our nerves. I gripped a sturdy branch from the ground, holding it like a weapon, though I knew it was little against a pack of wolves. But then Greywing honked loudly, flapping its wings in defiance. The boldness of the small goose startled the wolves for just a moment, enough for me to gather my courage. Together, we stood our ground. Greywing's fierce bravery gave me strength I didn't know I had. This was no longer just survival. It was a fight for the bond we had forged in the cold and dark. The forest held its breath as the wolves lunged, and Greywing soared to meet them, a fierce protector in feathers and flight. Greywing nestled close to my side, his presence a steady light in the darkest moments. That small warmth reminded me, no matter how lonely the world seemed, I wasn't truly alone. Little did I know, that moment of heroism was only the beginning of what Greywing had in store. Each day, as I slowly regained my strength, he stayed close, watching me with an almost human intensity. I'd wake to find him perched by the windowsill or right beside me, never far, always guarding. He was no longer just a wild goose. Greywing had become a protector, a friend, a lifeline in a world that often felt cold and solitary. Winter stretched on, and our bond grew deeper. Greywing brought me gifts, bright feathers, twigs, a handful of berries, simple tokens, but to me they meant the world. They whispered a promise. I was not forgotten. Then one morning, after a heavy snowstorm, Greywing's nervous honking drew me to the door. Outside, a large, strange footprint was pressed into the snow. Something big had passed by. Following the trail, with Greywing at my side, we ventured deep into the thick forest. The air grew colder, and unease settled over me like a shadow. Suddenly, a low growl broke the silence. Greywing froze, feathers bristling, as a pack of wolves emerged, eyes gleaming with hunger. Fear surged through me, but Greywing's loud honks and fierce wing flapping distracted the wolves just long enough. The hunt was on, and I knew I had to fight. To distract the wolves, Greywing honked sharply, his eyes darting between me and the predators. For a brief moment, confusion flickered across the wolves' faces. That hesitation was all I needed. I grabbed a sturdy stick nearby and held it out, trying to appear strong. The wolves snarled but didn't advance. They were testing, searching for weakness. Suddenly, Greywing sprang into action. With a burst of surprising speed, he charged low and fast at the largest wolf. Wings flapping fiercely, he collided with the beast, who yelped and stumbled back, caught off guard by the fierce assault. Greywing didn't relent. He swerved, striking again and again, his wings a blur as he pushed the wolves back. I could hardly believe my eyes. This was no ordinary goose. He was a warrior, my partner in battle. Together, we forced the wolves to retreat, their snarls fading into the distance. Breathing heavily, I looked down at Greywing, feathers ruffled but unbroken, and saw pride shining in his eyes. In that moment, I understood. Greywing was more than a wild bird. He was family, my protector, and I would do anything to keep him safe. But as I watched the sky, a quiet unease settled in. This was only the beginning of our journey. Days passed, but the strange illness only worsened. Weakness settled into my bones like a relentless fog. Even the simplest movements felt like climbing mountains. The warmth of spring couldn't chase away the cold clinging to me. Greywing sensed my pain. He stayed close, never leaving my side. His eyes watched me with a quiet concern, and every soft honk felt like a whispered promise. I'm here. One evening, too exhausted to move, I drifted into uneasy sleep. When I woke, Greywing was gone. Panic gripped my heart. Had he abandoned me, or was he searching for help? Hours later, he returned, carrying a bundle of leaves and roots, delicately wrapped in his beak. With trembling hands, I opened it. Among familiar herbs was a rare red root, known only to heal the deepest wounds. Tears welled in my eyes as I brewed the medicine, a gift from Greywing, a silent vow that he would never leave me to face the darkness alone. As I drank, warmth spread through my veins. Slowly, strength returned. The illness that had gripped me began to fade, and with Greywing beside me, I knew I was not just healing, I was reborn. As my strength returned, life found a gentle rhythm again. Greywing and I resumed our quiet days, wandering through the forest, resting by the lake, sharing moments that felt timeless. But one morning, silence greeted me. Greywing was gone. No honking, no fluttering wings, only an aching absence. I searched the woods, the riverbanks, the lake's edge, but there was no sign. Weeks passed, hope dwindling like the fading light. Then, from a distance, came a familiar sound, honking, urgent and clear. I ran toward it and found Greywing, but he was not alone. Around him gathered a proud, majestic family of geese, their feathers shimmering in the sun. He had returned to bring his family to share our world. For the first time in a long while, I felt whole again. The bond we shared had grown beyond the two of us. It was a connection that united us all. Yet beneath the joy, I sensed a quiet truth. Greywing's time with me was drawing to a close. His once energetic flight slowed. His eyes held a tender wisdom. I knew the moment to say goodbye was near. One morning by the lake, he stood silently, wings folded, gazing across the water. I asked softly, "Are you ready?" Without a word, he spread his wings one last time, a final powerful flap lifting him into the sky. Watching him soar away, sadness and peace mingled in my heart. He was free to live as he was meant, wild and untamed, but forever part of me. As days turned into months and months into years, Greywing's family stayed by my side, a living reminder of the bond we had shared. The young geese grew strong and wise, their honking filling the air with life and hope. One afternoon, as I watched the sun dip below the horizon, something something caught my eye. A small feather lying on the shore, shimmering in the golden light. It was a perfect match to Greywing's plumage. Holding it gently, I felt the weight of our journey. The love, the struggles, the unbreakable connection. Though Greywing had flown beyond my sight, a single honk echoed softly in the distance. I looked up to see a lone goose soaring across the sky, graceful and free. It wasn't Greywing, but it didn't matter. His spirit soared on the winds, carried through the skies, and whispered in the rustling leaves. Some friendships never truly end. They live on, woven into the very fabric of our lives, forever a part of who we are.